Welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast, a space where we explore change and healing and the journey to be back to your true self. If you've been feeling stuck, held back by limiting beliefs, important cycles of negativity thinking, you're not alone. And this is exactly where this podcast meets you. Each episode is designed to gently help you break free from those limiting beliefs and patterns and give you something real and practical and meaningful that you can begin to use in your own life. Here we don't just talk, we share tools, insights and stories that are not only inspiring but also understandable and relatable, so you can truly connect with them. And most importantly, everything we explore is something you can take away and apply, so that change isn't just about an idea, but something you begin to live. You'll hear from mentors and coaches and authors and teachers and specialists, people who have walked through challenges, faced their own struggles, and found a way forward. Their stories are here to open your eyes, touch your heart, and resonate deeply within you. And as you listen today, my hope is that you feel supported, empowered, and guided, because this journey is yours and you don't have to walk it alone. So I send you my love and blessings as you continue on your path of growth, healing, and transformation. Today I am honored to welcome our special guest, Mab Jones. She is joining us today as a qualified Reiki therapist, somatic sound therapist, counsellor, and author. And I met her in a clearing workshop with somatic sound frequencies, and her light and presence was so peaceful and so harmonizing, I had to invite her onto the podcast. So she joins us to share her guidance. So take this moment for yourself. Pause, breathe, and allow yourself to fully receive the insight, inspiration, and powerful conversation ahead. So, I want to say hello, Mab Jones, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. The sun is out again. We've had some amazing weather, haven't we?
Amazing, yeah. I mean, too good to be true. It's like the Mediterranean out there.
Well, it's raining next week, so let's
Oh,
take
back to normal.
yeah, back to
Fantastic. You know
normal.
where I am with
But you
that.
know what? The sunshine always makes your energy feel so much better, doesn't it?
I think so. It's really clearing. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of winter and the cold, so this is good. It's bright. I feel bright.
Yes, absolutely. It does make a huge difference. So,
Mm.
Mab, thank you so much for joining me. I met you about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now. Gosh, time flies.
Yes.
We're in one of your clearing workshops, and we're going to talk all about that. But first of all, as I said in my introduction, when I sat in that workshop, I just found you to be, your light was so peaceful, it was so harmonious, I felt so comfortable, and I really
Mm.
wanted you to come onto the podcast to share this beautiful light with my listeners, of course, but
Mm.
also just so for us to get to know a little bit more about you, because when people obviously are shining this guiding light and they're doing this healing and they're putting themselves out there, it's
Mm.
got to have come from somewhere. We've got to start from somewhere. So my
Mm.
first thing is, let's start with you as a child. Where are you born?
Mm.
Where'd you come from?
I was born in Cardiff. I was born in a place called Ely, which is a large council house estate. And at one point in the 80s, which is where I'm kind of from, born in the 70s, but lived in the 80s. It was one of Europe's largest council house estates. So it's known as a very working class area. Sometimes it's the subject of classist, in inverted comma, jokes and stereotypes, like where do thieves come from? They come from Ely. And I've made those jokes myself, but I'm allowed to because I'm from there. So yeah, I'm from this capital city of Wales, Cardiff.
That's wonderful. And have you got brothers, sisters, big family, small family?
I've got two sisters and a brother, and I'm the oldest.
Okay. So
Mm.
everything started with you and ended with you. I'm an oldest child as well,
Are
so
you?
I know
Yeah,
exactly.
most
You've got
important.
it.
What's the
Yeah,
list?
absolutely. So you grew up on the council estate. You went to school locally.
I went to school locally, but I went to a different high school to the one that I was meant to go to because had ambitions and wanted to do things differently from the women I saw around me who were all housewives, house slaves. Um, and lots of kids usually. So I didn't want that ever for myself, and I never had any dolls as a child. I believe I had a gem doll, but she was a doll who had like a job, and she was a rock star by night. She was really cool, and she was very glamorous. Gem, love Gem. But I didn't have any baby dolls or anything like that. I never felt maternal. I just kind of knew I didn't want children, and I never did, and I never have. And I
Wow.
wanted to learn things and study. And I had a typewriter as a child. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a writer. Um, and I went to a school called Howells, which was like a private school for girls. And it was the most prestigious, it is one of the most prestigious schools in Wales. And how I got there is I won what was called an assisted place. And it was only a couple of years ago I realized that is a kind of scholarship. But all my life I did call that an assisted place as if I was lesser. But I did win it. It was competitive. Now I'm middle aged. I'm calling it a scholarship.
Certainly. And you're appreciating, the importance of that scholarship, the assisted place,
Mm,
because of course, when we look back often into our
mm,
childhood, we start making the connections to how it really does form the path where we
yeah.
end up in our adulthood.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't confident because of where I came from and because of the family I was born into. And that's been an issue all my life that I'm still working on, really. And in fact,
Mm.
this morning I was making a presentation that I'm delivering tomorrow on confidence. So I'm like, oh, well, got a lot of experience on developing that. But it did really affect my life. And when I became a poet at the age of around 30, a lot of my poems were about class and the differences between the classes, and kind of mocking both groups, I suppose. But I'm not really into groups at all. I'm what is it Ian Jury called arts and crafts. So that's my class, really.
But I mean, you did become a writer as well. I think I read you had have 8 books that you've
Yeah.
written. So an author, you definitely, and obviously poetry as well. Poetry for me is it's your heart singing. It's your
Yes,
heart led energy.
it is.
Poetry, writing music, that type of thing is very much about the heart. So,
Yeah.
when you're a child and you're in a situation where you've had to probably almost redefine yourself when you went to a different school compared to where you
Mm,
lived, that
mm.
type of feel could have, you really had a lot of emotion that you needed to allow to come out, and you just followed that naturally as in your artistic ways. I think that's so fascinating.
Yeah, I did, but I was very blocked when I was younger.
Interesting.
So I retrospectively, at the age of 30, I started writing and I also had therapy for the first time. And I retrospectively was diagnosed with having selective mutism as a child. So that was a real issue with speech. But that is retrospective. I mean, looking back, it was probably more, you know, childhood difficulties and challenges and being very sensitive, I would say.
Mm. Can you tell us a little bit about those childhood difficulties and challenges?
Sure. I mean, I'm very grateful to my parents because we didn't go without things. We were a working class family, but we had every toy from the Argos catalogue that we wanted. And my mum did take us to the library every week, and we could get books out every single week. And I was a member of a book club in junior school called Bookworm Book Club, and I loved reading so much. And so there was a lot that was given to us, but the family life was unhappy, I think, unhappy. My mother wasn't treated well, and we children were not treated well. I have written a little bit about it, but I don't, I haven't been maybe overt I have been explicit in my last book, which was called Bog Witch. Page 1, I was surprised. Again, I was doing more self-work because that's never ended.
Yes.
And page 1, I was like, oh, talking about that. Okay, well, there we go. I've been in a lot of, I don't like the word healing, but I've been in a lot of groups that are teaching healing, or they're healing circles, or, mixed in with psychic development and that sort of thing. And quite often people I've met have had very difficult childhoods and have suffered child abuse. So there is a kind of link with that kind of suffering, which is so intense, and then you just want to find some relief from it. And so I feel the people who are talking about like spiritual bypassing, they might label it as that, but that's really judgy. Everyone suffers, and the suffering can be so intense, you just want some relief and release. And I always felt that would come through looking inward. And I always felt that meditation and energy work would somehow be the answer, even though it took a long time to find what worked. And then it was like such a long path, and I'm almost 50 now, but I would say I was right. And here we are, and I feel really good
I
now.
think that's absolutely true. And we're of the same age group, and I have a
Mm,
lot of women that I have interviewed on this podcast, and I have a lot of friends and people I have met in various different ways and groups and what have you, all awakening at a
mm,
later stage in life. But it's also quite interesting is how we're putting connecting the dots really of our life path to this moment of awakening. And this is why this
mm,
Guiding Voice podcast is so important, because there are a
mm,
lot of people now that are out there really helping the younger generation to
mm,
be very different in their formats and how they're thinking about themselves, and
mm,
how they are going to be continuing this type of work, this type of energy for the world, because there's got to be a change, and
yeah,
I really thoroughly believe that.
yes, I believe that too. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here,
Yeah,
because I
exactly.
feel I'm in the right place. And I remember, well, I was talking to one of my sisters recently. Unfortunately, we didn't speak for a number of years because of the difficult childhood. And I had a lot to work through, and I distanced myself from my family in order to do that. And then time just sort of flew by, and I hadn't seen her in such a while. But I reconnected with her recently because a lot's been happening, and the family, that can't be ignored. That's part of the healing work. Really, that's maybe the most important part. And self
And
and
I think
family.
I got to say it's the hardest part sometimes, because family
Mm,
is so close to you. It triggers you. It is about
mm,
your healing work. I mean, inner child work starts from
yeah,
your parents, and
yeah,
possibly grandparents. It can go even further
mm,
back than that.
yes,
And because we as parents, we try and do what we can, but obviously, everybody's trauma and challenges are
mm,
how they feel when they're growing up. And
yeah,
as children, we take on so much right up to the age of 8. We're like sponges, and that sort of
yes.
energy does sit with us
Mm,
going into childhood, going
mm,
into adulthood, doesn't it, from childhood?
yes, it does, yes. And my sister
And
did remind me that when we were children, very little, I would talk to her about how the end of the world was coming, and this was a kind of end time. I was like, oh, was I saying that at that age? And she was quite scared. But I do believe I mean, with the environment and everything that's happening now, my partner's an environmentalist. It's really serious. And it is a kind of end time. Things are going to radically change. They are changing already. And therefore, we have to wake up.
We do have to wake up as human beings. Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
Mm.
On any of your siblings, spiritual or none of them at all?
Um, well, they're very psychic, but spiritual, that's a different thing. So I'm
Okay.
from a family of very psychic people, and that's just an accepted thing. But again, as a child, I could see everyone's very psychic, but they're not perhaps moral. And I always felt it was more important to become a moral person. And that's what I see as spiritual. And spiritual then is not following laws, it's not, not agreeing with them for their own sake. That might be useful if you're in a religion or something. But if you understand energetically how karma works, how ties work, how contracts and curses work, how the words we speak work, in Buddhism, they say it's every thought, word, deed. If you can energetically understand that and see that and feel that, then you know that all those laws are good because you're safe within that. You're kept clear and bright and free by those laws. They're not a tying down. They're a freedom.
They are a freedom, absolutely.
Um,
Can I
so
ask you, you say
mm,
Buddhism, are you a Buddhist?
no, I'm not in any religion. I wasn't brought up in a religion, and I feel that that's not really for me. A group, a label isn't really for me. I did for a short time work for the Interfaith Foundation, and I feel that if people are in a religion or not any religion, it's absolutely fine because the path is inward, and that's it. Really,
I
it's
agree.
knowing who we are. That's the most important thing, and then if you can do that, everything comes clear, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a Buddhist. I'm a Nichiren
Mm.
Daishonin Buddhism, which
Mm.
is the Lotus Sutra. And the
Yes.
lotus flower, as you know, just seeds
Mm.
and blooms at the same
Mm.
time, comes out of the murky, and it's all about the
Yes.
inner world. And that resonated with me about 8 years ago. And
Mm.
I needed something. I was in quite a depressive state and what have you. So I really
Yes.
do believe, even if you are finding a bit of religion, whatever it might be, a faith,
Mm.
it's a tool. It's a way in which you can utilize it, even if it's just
Yes.
a short while, to help you on your path, to help you gain perspective, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I like all the concepts of all the religions. This is the thing. I mean, generally what they're saying is very good. And I have been in a lot of different groups for a short time because I never felt never really felt that that was for me. But I was in a Tibetan Buddhist group when I lived in Japan in my early 20s, and have met the Dalai Lama. So,
Wow.
name drop. I mean, he doesn't know who the hell I am, but that's fine because we're here for a limited time and it's not about fame, it's
Yeah.
about being.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Buddhism. I did go on a Lotus Sutra like chanting day
Yeah.
recently because I love Om and doing resonance work. That
Yes,
is
yes. That's
such
what
an
I loved about the
important
clearing was the Om. But
resonance.
Namyo Horenge Kyo, here's my card, Namyo Horenge Kyo,
Yes.
which is the Lotus Sutra, taught that all life inherently contains the potential for Buddhahood, a state of life filled with wisdom, courage, and compassion. And
Yes.
that can be revealed by chanting Namyo Horenge Kyo. So
Yes.
it's a lovely chant, and chanting is vibration, is
Mm.
sound, and that's what you're all about. And that's why
Mm.
when I was in your clearing workshop, it was just so I loved it. It was just beautiful, and I enjoy sound
Mm.
baths for the same reason. The
Yeah.
frequency really vibrates within the human body, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes. I mean, what I'm offering isn't exactly a sound bath.
No.
It is something a bit different.
Yes.
Don't know if
We'll
you want me
talk
to talk
about
about
that,
that.
definitely, but we'll get into that because there are a lot of healing techniques and practices, and I think it's just a case of finding what works for you and
Yeah.
what feels good for you.
Mm-hmm.
What feels good for me might not feel good for the next person, or even one of my friends, for example. So it
Yeah.
does it. You've got to, and you kept saying in all that last little bit we were talking about that you were feeling things, that you were sensing things, and what have you. That's intuition. That's following your gut
Mm-hmm.
feeling and being in touch with your body's
Mm-hmm.
feelings is where the heart sits, and following that heart center is really important. I did want to just ask you, you sort of talked about worthiness and having to, and that being a bit of a blockage coming from a background that you thought wasn't, good enough, or whatever you might want to say. With worthiness we carry forward, and when you
Mm-hmm.
started your healing and what have you, worthiness was maybe a block. How did you overcome that? What did you sort of process?
Um, well, it wasn't something that I could just overcome because I couldn't see it. It was impossible to see because it was just so embedded in who I was. And even now, looking back just a couple of years, I can still see it. So going forward in time, looking back, I can see it more clearly. I mean, I'm probably still not the most confident person on earth. I know in my language I tend to sound hesitant, but I'm absolutely not. So there's a kind of misalignment there. But you inherit certain ways of speaking and being, and you inherit a lot from, the culture around you, and then your parents and what you see and what's modeled, and what you're, again, it's just sort of embedded, isn't it? You're this personality at this time, you're this sex at this time. This is how you are taught to communicate. This is how you were taught to think to a great degree. And then you've got to undo all of that. And I remember when I was in that Tibetan Buddhist group, the teacher, who I agreed with everything he ever said, I just felt no affinity with the Tibetan deities at that time for reasons I understood much later. He said you had to unbake yourself. Like if you were a loaf of bread, you had to unbake yourself and then rebake yourself. And it does feel like that. You've got to put everything apart. And I did do a lot of that. So I've never felt that healing is healing for me. I've always called it clearing. It's always been undoing, and it's never been sort of like this great thing. It's always been difficult. People talk about shadow work. It's always been the shadow. It's always been that. It's always been that. It's never been anything other than shadow work. So I don't understand why people say shadow work like that's a cool thing. If you're not trying to keep looking at all the stuff that's really terrible and painful, then I don't know that clearing or healing would really be effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Um,
So what are your pivotal moments? Can in your 20s, you just mentioned you went to Japan and what have you. Pivotal moments where we make that
hmm,
radical change and we pick up things. So maybe when you became a Reiki therapist, or, what are your pivotal
yeah.
moments that you can
I
track?
mean, it's very tempting when you ask me that question, and we are speaking totally off the cuff. So I'm just saying whatever comes into my brain. I mean, it's very tempting to give a spiritual CV, isn't it? And say, well,
Yes.
it's when I became a Reiki master. But I don't think that was a pivotal moment. Um, I didn't, I think it's the softer things and the more human centered things. So I think when I went to live in Japan, what was really important was that I had a friend, because I didn't have friends really before that because I stopped speaking. I had such a problem with speech and communication. I was sort of, what word to use. Will my parents be listening to this podcast? Probably not.
No.
An abused child. So if you're really used, if you're tortured for a long time, 18 years, the first 18 years of your life, if you're very unhappy and you feel that you're nothing, you're a piece of dirt, I stopped speaking when I was 16. And then when I went to live in Japan, because I just so wanted to not be, I wanted to change. And actually, I was a terrible teacher at first. Because if you're going to go from not speaking to trying to be a teacher, it's going to be a little bit shit. So I was bad. for about 6 months, but then I gradually started like coming to learn how to do that, coming out of my shell. I had a lovely friend called Deirdre May, and I, of course, didn't talk about my childhood. I couldn't even look at it, and I didn't even really remember all of it, the very early stuff. But she was very kind to me, and talked to me, and that was really healing, and that was important. And she doesn't really know how important she was. And I think she sent me an email in January, and I haven't replied yet because I've been so busy and things are moving so quickly. But I know that when I send her a message, she'll be as kind as ever. She lives in South Africa, so don't see her. She's one of those distant friends. So that was important. And then later, I think different things. I think probably being ill was really important. From 2020, I was very ill. Started with like really high blood pressure, and then became just very low immune system, and mystery illness after mystery illness, and catching meningitis a couple of times. And
Goodness me.
I never talked about the fact that I studied Reiki and theta healing and all these other things and meditated such a lot. And I never talked about it ever.
Why not, do you think?
Well, the other thing that was happening was, as a child, I remembered a past life. And in that life, I was murdered. And obviously, very psychic family. My brother remembers that life too. He remembered that life too. And he was the one who murdered me. And
Wow.
when I started meditating, I mean, I was meditating from about 18, but nothing really worked. So I was in a Tibetan group. I looked at Christian meditation, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. I've been initiated in Tokyo to that particular branch of, Buddhism, but none of it really worked. I was so blocked. But then when I was 30, when I studied Reiki, that really changed things. So healing and meditation were always the same. But then when I started that at around 30, 29, 30, I started remembering other past lives. And it was always terrible deaths,
Oh, wow.
always terrible deaths.
Wow. No wonder you didn't want to speak.
Well, quite often I was persecuted and killed for speaking about spiritual things.
Wow.
So I remember so many of those. So the years went by and I kept meditating and remembering terrible deaths and kind of clearing them, remembering people in my family where they murdered me, and then starting to sort of, when I met people, like seeing their past lives, seeing where I knew them, and knowing, what the karma was. And it's like been such a karma clearing life, this one.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so then when I met this current partner, I just wanted to have a break from that sort of work. But I knew I hadn't cleared all the lives, and I knew I hadn't cleared all the childhood. I hadn't cleared anything before the age of 5. I knew this. But I stopped meditating and healing. I just thought, well, I just want to be a normal person for a bit. And I instantly felt my energy start going down, but I just ignored it. I'm a normal person now. And then I got really ill. So I had to go back. And then I remembered more terrible deaths, loads more.
Goodness
But I
me.
just thought, well, I can't go on forever. And I upped what I was doing because I was so unwell. And I thought I was going to die. The first time I had meningitis, I had premonition, psychic vision that in a year's time I would die. And a year later, I did get meningitis for a second time. So I think if I hadn't changed what I was doing, I would have died. But as it was, I did change what I was doing. And I felt like I went onto a different line of my life. Like I just went onto
Timeline
this other
shift.
path.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they were calling it. I mean, I only found that out after, but that is what I was seeing. Like I went onto this other line, and I'm on that line now, but now it's, yeah, there's a bit more. to do. But I cleared all the past life deaths eventually. I mean, the first lot of about 25 terrible deaths was over like 15 years, 10, 15 years. But then the last lot of, again, about 25, 30 terrible deaths was literally in about the year and a bit. So it was really, I've had a really
Powerful.
intense time
Powerful, yeah.
the last couple of years, but that is through the resonance therapy and kinesiology. There are two things. I haven't talked about the kinesiology so much, but they've both been really important. Yeah, and then when I finished with the terrible deaths, I had some lovely mystical experiences, some very typical mystical experiences, probably. So, becoming one with everything, that one. Seeing all my past lives, that one. Seeing what kind of being I really am, that one. uh, yeah, very typical mystical things, you
That
know.
is amazing. You
Oh,
talk, yeah.
realizing there's only one soul, and when you point at your heart and I point at my heart, we're pointing at the same being, that
Okay.
one.
That's interesting.
Many, many things, and recently now more very typical mystical things, but you know, feeling good. So,
Very magical, magical and mystical. That is
mm,
incredible. I mean, I did ask you what Mab, Mab, what does Mab mean? Your name, where does it come from? And you sort of
mm,
mentioned it was a fairy queen. Where's that come
yeah,
from?
it's from British mythology. There's a fairy queen called Queen Mab. She is the fairies' midwife. She is the bringer of dreams to men. She's mentioned in Romeo and Juliet, and there's a poem by Percy Shelley called Queen Mab. So she's like a fae being. But I just love the idea of people having dreams and this figure helping them with that, with their imagination, with their creativity, because that's really important to me as well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So let's talk about
Kinesiology. Yeah.
kinesiology. Thank you, put my teeth back in. Kinesiology. That is movement, isn't it?
No, it's based on traditional Chinese medicine and
Okay.
it's meridian work.
Meridian work.
It's
Okay.
working with the meridians. And again, looking back, I realized I've always done something that's chakra, working with the chakras. And then I've
Right.
always done something that's working with the meridians side by side. And I do think we need both,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had
Mm,
crystal healing with a
mm,
friend of mine, and she works with the meridians and the chakras
yeah.
using crystals. And it was
Yeah.
really quite interesting how that is so important.
Mm,
And of course, I do qigong, and the meridians
mm.
have to
Yeah,
be clear
Qigong,
and what
yes.
have you. Yeah, yeah.
And Qigong, yes, that was such a great thing to learn. Moving the energy, or you could do yoga. You could so much you can do, but
Yes,
kinesiology is specifically working with that meridian map from traditional Chinese medicine. And there's a lot of techniques in it, but it is energy work and it is magic. Um, yeah, and it's been just as important as the resonance therapy, but the resonance therapy feels so natural. And if I may talk about my past lives,
yes,
since I remember them all,
yes.
I haven't really come out and said that to anyone publicly. So there we go. Mad Mab. I don't know. What can you do? It's a very interesting time. Um, you've got to be very grounded to remember all your past lives, by the way. And I always think of these things as a gift and they're useful. And I try not to get caught up in the stories of them. Never have got caught up in the stories. I mean, with the terrible deaths, it was
You don't
definitely,
want
don't
to.
want to look
Yeah.
too much at those. But I do remember lives where I think with the resonance therapy, the sound work, it is the resonance rather than the sound because you can do it distance. It is energy work. You don't need the sound. The sound is useful though for putting people back in their bodies. Really useful. And that's step one of the work. I do remember doing it before in amphitheatres. I'm really sure they did that. In fact, I know they did that. I did that. And it wants to come back. So that's what the clearing is. Because as soon as I started learning the resonance therapy, even though no one has taught me how to do it as I'm doing it, I knew that's how I did it. And so I thought, well, I just knew that's how I'm going to do it. That is what wants to come back. I can
Yeah,
see it. I can
yeah.
see it then. I can see it now. And the clearing that you came to that event was the first time I was really overt with what I wanted to do. I did a couple of events before and I just dressed it up with the writing because everyone knows me as a writer. And I called it Sound and Words. But it wasn't exact, it wasn't what I saw. It wasn't the circle. It wasn't me with the permission of the divine, the source that allows me to clear everyone's energy system and then replenish everyone's energy system. And it is a kind of miraculous thing that happens, but it is also our birthright.
Oh, it was. I mean, I honestly, afterwards, I felt, well, I drove home. I can't even remember driving home really. One of those
Mm.
sort of really light feelings of, I was sort of buzzing. It was lovely. And I slept so lovely that
Mm.
night as well. But I
Yeah.
definitely feel like my inspiration, my intuition, it became much stronger over the next couple of days
Yes.
afterwards. It was lovely. Really
Yeah.
felt that motivation within me. It was gorgeous.
Yeah. It's kind of like an energetic bath.
Yes,
And
that's lovely.
I,
Yeah.
my work, which I feel so lucky and happy about, really. And I feel so free now I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. I feel so suddenly free. And I felt so trapped for so long. And now I feel free. And all I have to do is just do what I really love doing and help people. But it is like a bath, and the detritus, the dirt can just be lifted away. And then you can be given back just this fresh energy for your higher self and I am to do with as it wishes. Your soul, all of your elements can do as it wishes with that fresh energy.
Oh,
So again,
absolutely.
in the New Age, they talk about returning to your blueprint. Well, if that's the wish of your
Yes.
highest aspects, that is what will happen. I mean, for some, there's a lot that needs to be cleared. So I'm saying it's miraculous. It is powerful. And this is where the confidence comes in, because obviously, how could the person who felt like nothing be now this person who is the facilitator of something that is really profound?
Yes,
But
but
maybe,
you're the person now. You were that powerful person for many lifetimes. That's who you tap
mm,
into, and that's the person that's coming through and awakening within you right now. So, being
mm,
in this lifetime, you're just aligning with your higher self, yourself, that's coming from different lifetimes of power,
I
healing power.
am healing power. Yeah. Unfortunately, after or sort of as I was doing the last round of terrible deaths, I did also remember the lives where I abused my power. So then in those lives, I made certain vows not to become that again. So maybe I blocked myself. Who knows? I mean, I did. I took oaths not to become that high priest kind of character again who, acted like a guru. Um, but I think it's fine. We've got limited time. I'm never going to be that person again. I feel
No,
pretty
not this time
clear
round. This might
myself.
be the last lifetime. So you have got to do what you need to do right now to clear all that. That's what karma's all about,
Mm,
isn't it? It's
mm,
very interesting concepts. But so
mm,
what you talk resonance therapy and then
mm.
the somatic sound therapy. Are that not the same thing?
No, well, actually, what's happened with that is I didn't know what to call it, and I
Right.
still probably don't. So I called it somatic sound therapy because it is being in the body. You've got to be in the
Yes.
body for it to
The
work.
word somatic. It
Yeah,
comes from the Greek word
so
soma.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
living body, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah. So I love that, and that is really important. But then I realized people had so many associations with sound, the word sound,
Yes.
and literally I would say to someone, "This is not a sound bath." I even had it as a hashtag, and then
I
people would
saw
say,
that.
"Yeah," people would say, "Oh, but I've had sound baths before." And I'd be like, "Oh my God, sound baths have just they have, done fantastic marketing, haven't they? Because everyone knows what they are. And now here I am doing this other weird thing, but it's absolutely not a sound bath.
But I
It's
don't know whether I
resonance.
agree with that completely because, the sound is very vibrational.
Yes, it's resonance therapy,
The
vibrational
resonance,
therapy.
vibrational, not
Yes,
I
yes.
well, yes. I mean, it is difficult to explain, really, because I
Because
mean,
if it
even
was
when
a
you're using your not the tuning
mm,
fork, because I couldn't hear. I
no,
mean, if you hit the tune ding the tune, I can. But you're doing the tuning fork, but then you've also got the chimes, which are beautiful.
yes. So the healing is not. It's in the resonance. When I hit the chime, the tubular bell, it's not that initial sound. It's that
The
after.
vibration, yeah. The frequency,
Um,
is it? The frequency,
the
maybe.
frequency. Well, the
Yeah,
frequency is more like the tone.
yeah.
It's yeah, the resonance of it.
Resonance.
And I do play sounds in the sessions, but I don't have to for the
Okay,
therapy to work. And that's how it's not sound therapy, because
right,
you could be in silence, or you could be listening to a Beatles song or something else, bird song. The therapy is the tuning fork or
right.
forks that I'm
Yeah,
using.
yeah.
And then I'm, with permission from everyone in the room and permission of Source, entering everyone's energy system simultaneously and clearing every chakra with that tuning fork. And it does take a little while, like an hour, because everyone will have something that needs clearing at one of the points. So it's a little bit time consuming, but I just play the sound of uh, the chimes because some people need to have something to listen to.
Right,
I
right.
mean, I could be doing that and someone else could be doing a sound element.
So how is
You
it
know.
affecting, parts of the body? I mean, is it,
Mm,
you say it's the chakras, it's your main
chakras.
chakras and the meridian
It will be
line?
affecting the meridians, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, we can't say that they're separate because they're connected. The
yeah,
chakras
of
are
course,
connected
yeah,
by the meridians.
yeah.
And kinesiology looks primarily at the meridians, and then the sound therapy works primarily with the chakras. But so often, when I've done one-to-ones, I'll be drawn from the chakras to the meridians or from the meridians to the chakras. It's one whole system.
So you actually do feel that. And when we were sitting in the circle there, could you feel
Um,
different people's blockages or could you
it's case by case. If it was a smaller group, definitely. If it's a one-on-one, yes, for sure. And then there'll be extra information. So there might be past life information or this life information or my other specialty, attachments. Um, yeah, and things of that sort. I won't talk too much about those because that is a whole world unto itself. And then the other side of attachments, deities. So I love working with deities, and as soon as I started, not as soon as, but a little while after I started learning how, I learned how to meditate, what kind of meditation worked for me, and how that was the same as healing. A little while later, a certain set of deities did turn up one day en masse, and I worked with them for a while, and then I worked with some others who again turned up. And what I realized is I had worked with them in past lives, or I had been a
right?
priest or priestess in past lives.
Wow.
And when I work with people, especially one on one, it will either be past life and or this life and or entities, attachments and or deities, some mix. And I just let the system present to me what it wants, because it's always about the clearing, what needs clearing.
Yeah.
Um, but in and then up to a couple, maybe four. I have had four, and then it's fine. But when it's groups, it won't. It hasn't so far been that particular because there's so many people there. But there might be thematic things I'll pick up on. And again, it will depend on what needs clearing in the room. So one of the first group sessions I did, I could sense two of the people had been abused as children, and that was what needed clearing. That was what was coming up, that sort of trauma. But I'm just doing the same thing. I'm just getting a bit of information, but the process is the same. So whether I see it or not, because that's the psychic, the spiritual work is still happening. The energetic work is still happening. In the group that you were in, it was more about the imbalance between the feminine energy and the masculine energy. So I could feel that. And yes, I could feel that in some particular individuals. And I could feel in some particular individuals, they had blocks at their feet, had blocks at their knees, and they needed a lot of clearing because the energy needs to flow up and it needs to flow down. It's always above and below that I'm working with.
Yeah, as above, so
Um,
below. Did you feel anything with me? Shall I ask?
I don't remember, I'm sorry,
No,
because
that's
I'm in
okay.
an altered state.
Yeah,
And I'm in
yeah.
an altered state before I do that work because I've already set the room up.
Yes, you did say that. Yes.
Um, so when I was remembering all the past lives and, all the, and clearing a lot of stuff from myself, including attachments, a lot of things were attached to me or in me, or, there's a lot of crap there. I also, along the way, intuited or was gifted a lot of ways of protecting a space um, just when I needed them.
Yeah.
So over time, 20 years, that built up into a kind of a system. And now, 2 years ago, I had at my house just an event, and I called it like Spirit Mixer. And it's just for people to come and get to know each other. But I do keep those protections, or whatever we want to call them, around this space that I live in. Because I used to get spirits bothering me all the time as well, is one of the other things, and I just didn't want to be woken up all the time by the dead. um, so yeah, there's quite a few mediums in my family. So that's another thing could have got into if it was just about the psychic stuff. So yeah, but they're already around this space. So if people come into this space, certain attachments will be lifted away. But if something is in your aura, in you more embedded, it's not going to be lifted away. But I also fill this space with healing energy, the energy that you would have felt when you walked into the
Yeah.
space
Yeah.
last weekend.
Yeah.
So that first sort of tea and chat, two people had attachments that were removed, and then they were in the space. And one of them followed one of my friends home, one of my psychic friends, and attacked her. And one of them tried to attach to her, and then one of them stayed here with me and tried to attach to me.
Oh my goodness.
And so that night we were like having sort of frenzied chats on the road, like about these invisible beings that were, yeah. But it
Wow.
was fine. Well, it was fine because I'm a clearer, so I cleared them.
Yeah, well done. Yeah.
And it
So
was
what
useful.
if people
Hmm,
for the listeners now, they they what sort of things would they be sort of thinking now to sort of as far as their healing is concerned, if they wanted to reach out to someone like yourself? What sort of
yeah.
things would they be thinking, oh, I need to what? Because for me, I mean, it was just a natural. I met Mel, and Mel said, "Come to this clearing," and I was like,
Mm,
"Yes," because for me, it's a quite a natural sort of draw,
mm,
because I'm open to healing. But if somebody is
yeah,
at a stage now where they just know they want to make a change in their life, they're at a pivotal
yeah,
time. What
yeah.
would you suggest they'd be looking for, thinking about to come to you
Mm.
to do something like this?
Well, I would say forget everything that I've said because even though I have talked some outlandish talk, I'm really not into. I'm weirdly not into that. I'm talking this talk, and for me, it's a technical talk. experiential. It is 50 years of experience. It's undeniable, but I don't want to convince anyone. I think what I would say is, do you want to feel better? Do you want to feel brighter? Do you want to feel happier? Do you want to feel clearer? If you do, what have you got to lose? Come to me. That's it. I wouldn't talk necessarily about other things, more technical things. I can with you yourself. But not everyone can see interdimensionally. That's another thing I've come to realize.
Yes, yeah.
Not
Yeah,
everyone can do that.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and then you just scare people or just sound weird. And a lot of the things I know now, I didn't even know 2 years ago, let alone 5 years ago, 10 years ago. My teenage self now would think I was absolutely nuts. So, absolutely nuts. So, yeah, I think just be open to feeling clearer, be open to change, be
Mm.
open to transformation. If you feel stuck or heavy, you don't have to necessarily keep feeling that way. I had depression most of my adult life, and I don't have that anymore. I've never taken an antidepressant. I've done it the long way around, which is the clearing way. There was a lot to clear in my energy system. There was a lot of karma to clear. So if I can do it, others can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the listeners taking away a message today, I think it's been quite clear as we've been talking. It's about finding what works for you and trusting that there is alternative options than just
Yeah,
taking a tablet.
find what works for you, but don't expect a magic pill, because I have been doing this now, consciously since I was 30. So that's 20 years. And sometimes it was slow. Some last 2 years were very fast. There was a lot of unpleasant stuff to look at, but it can be so quick. I mean, that's relatively quick, isn't it? For all those lifetimes,
Absolutely. That is,
really.
mine was literally 3.5 years. Phew. It's just been a
Was it?
absolute trajectory.
Mm,
And
mm,
now it's continuing. I'm stepping into a
yeah,
new timeline shift myself, and I know that that is
mm,
what's going to happen, especially after the
mm,
full moon coming this weekend. But I
mm,
feel it. It's been preparation these last few months, but
yeah,
it's like it does. It suddenly takes you, and as you say, it's been many years. You've been on the path, but then all of a sudden something suddenly shifts, and you take on this
yeah.
change.
And I think also because we've done it first, and maybe we have done it at a slower rate, because we are from the age where there was no internet, for example. It
That
was
is
just
true.
like
Yeah,
random books that you would somehow find, or um, and I think if we're now for us in this position, we have gone the long way around because it's about teaching. For me, it's
yes,
about teaching and showing, and quite often now it's if I hadn't gone through it, I wouldn't know
yeah,
the method. But then the next people, the people who come to us, can just do it a lot faster because we know all the tricks now. Because we went the
absolutely,
long way around, we've
absolutely.
walked around the perimeter of the bloody field, and we're like, no, there's an actual path through.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't have to walk through the mud and
yeah,
the crap and jump
yeah,
over like 10 fences. There's a path. But we had to work it out
yeah. We've
slowly.
cleared the way. We're clearing the way.
We cleared the way,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah,
others can clear more quickly
yeah,
now as a
yeah.
result.
Yeah, absolutely. What is
Hmm.
a question that I haven't asked you that you would have liked me to have asked?
Um, I'm not sure there is a question really. I don't feel like that because it was such a chat. You know, I think I just feel, with consciousness and the soul. I mean, when you look at the Bible, I'm not in a religion, as I say, but Jesus, was meant to be this divine, perfect person. And even he lost his bloody rag, didn't he, in the Bible? And I'm like, no one's perfect. So I just want to express that. Maybe when I was younger, I was like, one day things will be perfect, but they never are. And we never are, actually. But we can be more and more who we're meant to be. Maybe we're
Absolutely.
perfect in the next place.
Well, I think we're perfect as we are now in the version we are now
Mm,
for the reason we are here now. I think it's really being in alignment with ourselves right now. And you talked a little bit about that sort of worthiness and what have you, and being in the room, and maybe you're still feeling a little bit nervous talking and that. But you know what? You come across as so authentic. And I think that's something today that we really have started to be, well, or I certainly have, and I'm sure listeners as well. It's about,
mm,
valuing authenticity and
mm,
uniqueness. Because in a world where there is so much that isn't authentic and isn't unique any longer,
mm,
when we come across people like yourself that is open, honest, true, and it's unique and authentic, I think that is what people pick up on and go with. Definitely.
Well, I hope so, because everyone is unique.
Yeah.
And I was always amazed when I was a child, like everyone's got different fingerprints. So
Yes.
there's almost 8 billion sets of unique fingerprints on this planet. And if I think of this planet in any way, then it's as a garden and everyone's a flower in the garden. And I know that's really hippy dippy. I'm not going to start wearing tie dye suddenly. Don't worry, everyone. But it is a garden and there's a lot of dirt in the garden, but that's how flowers grow. And
Absolutely.
everyone's unique and everyone's got something to share and offer.
Yes. Absolutely. You've just
Everyone's
got to
got,
find it sometimes.
yeah, everyone's got a right to bloom,
Yes.
I think.
I love that. That's lovely. So what's next on your journey now then, Mab? What are you blooming? Let's hear.
Yes. Well, I am still doing my own self work because that never ends.
Yeah.
Um, and I did have another premonition at the start of this year that I would die in June, and that is next month. But actually, I was like, what? Some people suggested it wasn't a physical death. And the way things are happening at the minute, maybe they are right. So
Sounds
there is
like a
that.
rebirth to me.
I think so, but it's a big one. So,
Yeah. Well, you did
yes,
just say you were shifting onto a completely new timeline, so I think maybe you're going to be very powerful and get a huge gift, and off you go.
yes, I just have to give everything. That's all. My whole ego and everything. That's all. So, yeah, doing that, just that little thing at the minute. And then beyond that, I've got some plans, but there'll be autumn plans. And I'm sort of waiting for this thing that's happening. It is happening, but I don't decide the pace. I've just been given this lovely again premonition of like June. And in the meantime, I'm planning some events that are really close to my heart. So there'll be another clearing event in July. And I've made such a lush poster on Canva. It looks like we're going to a rave, but not. But it's so fun.
Well, I'll
Um,
be there. I'll be there. Sounds good.
Um, and obviously, I love poetry, and I feel that poetry is the soul speaking. And you really echoed that. And you're one of the few people I've met who does say the same thing, the same definite kind of definition. It's the heart, it's the soul speaking. And I'd
Absolutely.
like to. I've done a lot of online courses and a lot of teaching. I've been teaching for 22 years. And I want to bundle some of that up into a poetry and, well, a writing and spirit sort of course for the autumn. So I'm
Sounds
doing that
lovely.
at the minute. Running a session on confidence tomorrow. I've become a director of this organisation called Thriving Communities. And we're going to run a festival on positive psychology and joy. Yeah.
Sounds great. Oh, I look forward to seeing that
Yeah.
too. Well,
Yes.
I think you've got a lot coming up. And,
Yeah.
once again, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us
Thank you
today.
for having me. Thank you for letting me witter on. It was my favourite things to talk about. I mean, coming out as Mystic Mab was quite challenging, but you've made it very easy for me to talk and very comfortable. And thank you for talking the same sort of chat with
That's
me.
lovely. Well, thank you. We'll see you again very soon. Thank you, ma'am. Bye bye.
Thank
Take
you so
care.
much. Bye.